Welcome and thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Today we'll be taking a look at resolving an issue with importing the Parrot OS OVA appliance into VMware Workstation 16. Before we get started on that, just a little bit of information for those that might not be familiar with what Parrot OS is. You'll be able to go to https://parrotsec.org. That's parrotsec.org. I'll put the link of this site in the description of this video. If you go to this site, then basically what Parrot OS is, it's going to be Debian-based Linux distribution that has security and privacy in mind. They have different offerings available on the site, which we'll see here in just a moment in the download section, one of which is going to be the OVA appliance that we're going to use for security in this demo here today. And that's going to give you the features similar to Kali Linux, BlackArch Linux, as well as some other distributions, that it's a pre-configured out-of-the-box appliance that's going to give you an extensive suite of tools to be able to perform security pen testing. If you're doing any reverse engineering, it has some programming tools in there, some digital forensic analysis, and some privacy features as well. As you can see here on parrotsec.org, this is the home page. If we just go over to the download page here, you'll see the distributions that are available. Current version is 4.11.2, and that's going to be across each of these. As I was mentioning earlier, there are several options that are available here. We have on the left-hand side the Home Edition, which is general use, and it's going to have some Tor features, other security features. We also have the Security Edition. That's going to be the version I'm going to be using here today. And also on the right-hand side, we have the IoT and cloud appliances. Get started, then what you would want to do is go ahead and select your version. This particular issue that we're going to be demonstrating here today will occur on each of the versions, but I'm just going to use the Security Edition version here. Just select on that button, and you're going to have a couple different options. One's going to be the Mate desktop, and one's going to be KDE. You're going to have download of the actual ISO. Now, I've already downloaded this ISO, so I'm going to go ahead and stop that download. We'll see the install of the operating system from the ISO later on, but right now, if you're trying to download the OVA appliance, then you'd be able to select the Try Virtual Appliance. It gives you the OVA on which particular distribution that you would like, and there's some other distributions down here if you're doing Hack the Box or if you're doing Docker images as well. Again, we're going to be focused on the OVA security, so you could select the download option there, and that will begin the OVA download. I've already downloaded it. Let's go ahead and see what the error is when we're trying to import the OVA appliance into VMware Workstation Pro 16. And it's not exclusive to Workstation Pro 16. It can happen on other versions as well. So here we are, VMware Workstation. Version I'm using here is 16 Pro. I'm going to go ahead, since I've already downloaded the appliance, open that virtual appliance. We have the Parrot Security 4.11.2. This is the security version that we downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and select that file, open it, and we immediately get this VMware Workstation error. It's line 154, unsupported element storage item, as well as the unsupported element for EthernetPortItem. This is a common error that a lot of people are running into. It's going to be based partially on how this OVA appliance was created. I'll show you that here in just a moment. Go ahead and select OK. I'm going to go into Windows File Explorer into the path that we have the OVA appliance here. As you can see that I mentioned earlier, I did download the ISO. That's going to be demonstrated here, but here's our OVA appliance, Open Virtualization Appliance. It's a single file that you can go ahead and extract this, and we'll just put it in path here. You're going to see that it has an unexpected end of data error message. You can ignore that for right now. Generally, you'd probably want to verify the integrity of any files if you do happen to see that specific issue in your environment, running an MD5 some hash or SHA hash. Once it gets to 100%, you can go ahead and close it. We see that we have our folder that it was extracted to here. And within our folder, we have several different files. We have a MF file or a manifest file. This could be opened with any text editor. I'm going to go ahead and open it with Notepad++, and we're going to see that the contents of this file is going to have our SHA-256 hashes for the OVF and VMDK files. If you want to verify that, let's go ahead in here. I'm just going to copy the name of this file. I'm going to open up PowerShell, and let's go ahead and navigate to this particular path. Do a directory listing. Here we have the same files that we're looking at above in the Windows Explorer, our MF file, OVF, and VMDK. In the manifest file, I'm just going to run a hash on the OVF file. I'm going to do get file hash, and then we're going to want the specific file that we're going to be performing that on. So we're going to have Parrot virtual1 VF, which is Open Virtualization File or format. We're going to specify the algorithm, and this is going to be SHA-256 format list. You don't have to do a format list output. Let's go ahead and run this. It's going to give us our hash, and of course we'd be able to go back into our Notepad++ and we can verify the hash. Similarly, you could perform this on a VMDK. I've already done this before the video and verified that the hash is correct. So it's not a corruption issue that we're having on this particular import error. It is another issue though, however. Let's go back here, open up this OVF file. Again, this is something that, well, actually, let me take a step back. If we were to open this particular file, well, let's see if we get that error message within VMware Workstation 16. Go ahead and open a virtual appliance and select OVF. We do still get the same error message. So let's take a look at the OVF file. Let's edit this with Notepad++. So we're going to have a little bit of information here. We have OVF version. I already see some of the issues of why we're getting this particular error message. So we have OVF version in the envelope, and it's showing us version 2.0. We'll come back to that here in a little bit. But in that same line, if we just scroll over, we got a VirtualBox OVF machine. References our VMDK file. And OVF, just to give you an idea, it's kind of a descriptor file. It's going to have references to resources where we can basically import and use the virtual machine. We have an OVF disk capacity. That's actually going to expand when we do import it. We have the OVF format in the VMware Faces specification, VirtualBox UUID, version here, 4.11.2, security edition. Got our EULA agreement that we'll see later on. And if you notice on the left-hand side, I have Notepad++ enabled so that it shows us line numbers. Specifically in our error message, we're looking at line 154 and line 163. Hardware VSSD, VirtualBox 2.2. Again, these are just kind of reviewing some of the issues of why we're having this problem with the import of the file. OVF required is false. So let's go down to our line items 154. Here's our storage item. That's the one that we're actually getting the error message on for unsupported element on the storage item. And we also have line 163. There's our Ethernet port item. We're going to have VM RAM size. We're going to have memory size of this appliance, which is going to be 4 gig out of the box. So I have enough idea of what is going on here. At this point, we have several different options to deploy the virtual machine in VirtualBox. I'm going to show you the first option here, but I'm not going to present it as a viable option, as you'll see here in just a moment. So if we wanted to create a new virtual machine, we could just use the VMDK. So create a new virtual machine out of the box and reference the VMDK. I'm going to show you. Again, this is not the option that I would recommend. I'm going to go through several options later on that's going to be better suited to what you're trying to do in the easiest manner. It's not that this option won't work, as you might run into some issues with. Let's go ahead and create a new virtual machine. Typical install the operating system later. This is going to be Debian. Give it a name. The disk file from the OVF, when you deploy this appliance, is going to deploy a disk. I believe it's 128 gig, if I'm not mistaken. It might be 120, but we'll just use 128 for this. So it's going to be the max size. It's not going to be the initially deployed size. That disk will expand over time, and we're going to select store as a single file. Then select next. Finish. It creates the virtual machine. Let's go ahead and edit the settings of the virtual machine. Memory, again, we're going to put it at 4 gigs. Processors, let's go ahead and use 4 processors, enabling virtualized Intel VT. Got our hard disk here. We're going to go ahead and remove this hard disk. Add. Let's go ahead and cancel this actually. Select OK. Go back in and edit the virtual machine, because we need to be able to see the option for the disk that we're trying to add. SCSI recommended. All right, we're going to actually use an existing virtual disk. Browse to and select the file. It's the VMDK file. We're using VMware Workstation 16. You might get this option here to either keep or convert it over to a format that is going to be suitable for Workstation. We'll go ahead and select that to convert it. Go ahead and select OK. Let's power on the virtual machine. And let's see if we run into the problem that I suspect that we're going to have here. Immediately get a message saying that we don't have access to the partition that we need. We're going to select Allow All, because if we select Allow, we're going to have individual messages come up. We have read-only file system, and we have block update IO errors. Yeah, this is a problem that I suspected that we were going to have. Now, this is a correctable issue. To correct this issue, however, we would have to reboot the appliance, get into the grub configuration to boot in the single user mode, take corrective actions on making sure that the etcfs tab has the correct partitions and so forth that we're going to need. So I'm not going to demonstrate that in this video here. We're actually going to move on to the other options that I think is a cleaner process on this. So let me get out of the console here. I'm going to go ahead and power off this VM. Go ahead and remove it because I don't want that VM getting in the way of our other deployments here. Let's look at the option that we can actually deploy successfully into VMware Workstation. Rather than using the VMDK like we were just trying to use here, if we go back into our download option here, Mate or KDE, you can select whichever one, but if you select the download link, it's going to download the .iso file. And when we create a new virtual machine using the ISO file, that's actually going to be a cleaner process and it's going to successfully deploy the virtual machine. So let's go back into Workstation, create a new virtual machine, typical, next, install the operating system later. Select our ISO file. I just downloaded the KDE version. You can download the Mate version, personal preference of what you would want. For me, I didn't really care. I just downloaded the one that might be suitable. Power on the VM, and let's go through the install here. All right, so you're going to get a couple different options. Try and install. You can use the options. Scrolling down, you have advanced options as well. I'm just going to go ahead, select our first option, try install. Out of the box with this install, we could use it as a Linux Live CD and use the various options that you might have for this to see if you like it. If you do like it, of course, and you want to go ahead and install it like we're going to do now, then you can just go ahead and select that option to install it and go through the installer. Select your preferred options, of course. We're going to go ahead and just let the installer erase the disk. It's a new virtual machine, so we don't have to worry about losing any data. But of course, you can go ahead if you have preferences of setting the partitioning manually, you can do that. This concludes option number 1, installing Parrot OS from an ISO file. That I think would be an easy, intuitive process that you could use as an alternative to importing the OVA appliance. Of course, you have all the features depending on which distribution that you have. It's option 1 that I would consider as a viable, easy solution. I'm going to go ahead and power this VM off. And we're going to be taking a look at option number 2. Option number 2 is going to be using the OVA appliance that we've already downloaded. In the case that you might not have downloaded the ISO file, of course, doing so is, again, it's a viable solution. Might take a little bit more time to download the ISO, which is close to 5 gigabytes. Let's look at option 2 here for using VirtualBox as an option on the OVA appliance that we've already downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Just bear with me, I'm going to set up for the next option 2. So option 2, we're going to be deploying the OVA appliance that we've already downloaded from the parrotsec.org website, and we're going to be using VirtualBox to do so. For those that might not be familiar with what VirtualBox is, It's a free download. Oracle provides this as a free download here, and you can run virtual machines using VirtualBox instead of VMware Workstation 16. You're going to have the package, and you're also going to want to download the Oracle VM VirtualBox extension pack. I will show you why that is the case later on, but if you scroll down here, you can select whichever platform that you're using, Windows, Mac, various distributions of Linux, Solaris, and there's the extension pack at the bottom there. Download whatever your preference is. I've already downloaded it here. Let's go ahead and install it. Oracle Box is installed. Let's go ahead and run it. Here's our default interface with Oracle Box. We can select the import option. Go ahead and select on that icon there and browse to and select the file that we're looking for. Again, we're going to be using the OVA appliance that we've already downloaded from the Parrot OS site. You can change any variables here on the virtual machine that you like. I'm just going to leave it as default. Import the appliance. You can read through that if you like and accept the EULA agreement. Now that the import is completed, we can go ahead and start the virtual machine. And this is why I was saying that we need the VirtualBox extension pack. Go ahead and expand this. We're going to see implementation of a USB controller. How do we resolve that? Well, let's go ahead and exit out of here. Go up to Tools, Preferences, Extensions, and I'm going to add the extension pack that I've already downloaded. So we can select the extension pack, read the questionnaire, installed successfully. There's our extension pack. Now, start the VM. We've completed option 2. We have a working Parrot OS install on Oracle VirtualBox using the file that we've already downloaded from the site. But this video was addressing the issue on importing into VMware Workstation. I want to also give you an option 3, using the files that we've already downloaded to be able to import into Workstation. Let's go ahead and we're going to shut down this VM. Using VirtualBox is going to be part of option 3 here because we've already imported the appliance, but we're going to be doing an export. If you recall earlier, when we were looking at the OVF file, we saw at the top of the OVF file that OVF version was 2.0. So this is kind of where our problem lies in the unsupported elements that we're getting. Let's go over into VirtualBox. Select the Parrot security VM that we created. We're going to do File, Export Appliance. Verify that you're exporting the correct virtual machine if you have multiple virtual machines in there. The format that we want to use, when this appliance was created, it was created using the OVF version 2. We actually want to use OVF, or Open Virtualization Format, version 1.0. We can export it as an OVA appliance. We don't need to make any changes. Export. Export of the new Parrot OS security appliance in OVF format has been completed. We can go ahead into our file system and check that we have it here. It's an OVA appliance that was created with OVF tool version 1. You might be wondering, will it import into VirtualBox? Let's go ahead and remove this one. This is a version that we downloaded originally from the Parrot OS website. Remove it. We're going to delete the files, and we're going to import the new appliance that we have in OVF tool version 1. Import is successful. Let's go ahead and start the virtual machine, making sure that it boots. This concludes this particular segment on importing into VirtualBox. Again, option 3 was using the same files, OVA appliance, that we downloaded originally from the Parrot OS site. We've exported the OVA in version 1, imported it into VirtualBox, and it works. What about Workstation? So we're going to do an open virtual machine. You'll notice that we can just select retry on this option here for compliancy check. You'll notice that we do not get the original error that we had on the unsupported elements for the storage item and Ethernet port items using the OVF version 1 appliance. Import of the appliance is successful. So at this point, option 3 has concluded, whereby using the original OVA appliance, we were able to import that into a VirtualBox instance, export the OVA version 2 of the appliance as an OVA version 1 appliance, which successfully imports into VirtualBox as well as VMware Workstation using the same files that we downloaded. Hopefully you found this video to be informative and helpful in importing the OVA appliance into VMware Workstation as well as Oracle VirtualBox. If you found this video to be informative and useful to help you install, please like, subscribe, and comment below on the channel. Thanks and take care.